Hey, so do you find yourself wanting to try out a new operating system like Linux or maybe Windows 11, but you don't have a spare computer or don't want to go ahead and take the plunge and dedicate your daily driver, your main machine to this new operating system just to play around or learn something new? Well, this is a perfect example of when a layer 2 hypervisor would come into play. Something like Hyper-V from Windows, VirtualBox, or in our case, VMware makes a product called Workstation Player. It's a desktop hypervisor application that delivers local virtualization features and is available for free for your personal use. There is a commercial paid license as well. I think for what you're trying to accomplish, this would be an excellent way to dive into playing with a new OS on your existing machine. See, a layer 1 hypervisor takes all of your computer's primary resources, the compute and RAM and storage and stuff, virtualizes it so that it can be sliced out and used in multiple virtual machines. This does a similar functionality and has similar features, but without having to replace your existing operating system on bare metal. So let's just go ahead and dive into this and see what VMware has for us. Now, a couple caveats here. One, if you're going to use a layer 2 hypervisor, really any of them, you have to make sure that you've got enough resources available for the VM that you're going to build within that hypervisor that's not going to affect your primary operating system, like Windows in this case. Can VMware Workstation Player be installed on the same machine with other VMware products? And the answer is no. VMware Workstation Player is not designed to co-install with other VMware products. So the most recent version of VMware Workstation Player is 17, and that's what we're here to download today. Of course, there will be links for all of this stuff down below in the description underneath that like button. Easily run multiple operating systems as virtual machines on your Windows or Linux PC with VMware Workstation Player. So if you're using Linux like Ubuntu or Debian or something like that, and you need Windows for a specific application, this could be a good option for you. Another good example of why you would want to use a virtual machine is going to be like a secure sandbox. You've got this machine where not all your stuff lives, just this one little machine where if something happens to it, it's no big deal. You can blow it away, start from scratch again. If you want to download an app that you're not too sure about, you need to run it in a isolated and secure environment. Again, this is a good opportunity for you. So let's just go ahead and download this. You can go to your My VMware account and click download for free. Go to downloads. Depending on the operating system that you are using, there's an option for Linux and there's an option for Windows. Of course, we're using Windows here. And here we go with our setup wizard. Going to hit next. This setup wizard will install VMware Workstation 17 Player on your computer. Click next to continue. Make sure you fully read your terms and conditions and then hit next if you agree. I'm just going to leave these all by default settings. I also don't want to check for updates at startup. I'd rather do that manually myself, but you do you. Create shortcuts, sure, and install. Here we go. Might just take a couple of minutes. It's not a huge application, so that helps. Now, something else that might come up is make sure that on your primary system you have virtualization enabled. Typically that can be done through the BIOS, and we're complete. Click the finish button to exit the setup wizard. So this application isn't like ESXi and it required a license. Even though it was a free license, it still required a license to run. This is not the same way. So we're just going to hit finish. Going to go ahead and run VMware Player. This is the main GUI. And since we were just talking about licensing, you can see here that this product is not licensed and is authorized for non-commercial use. For commercial use, purchase a license, and it's got a buy here button. Couple of options in our main menu here. Of course, create a VM, create a new virtual machine, which will then be added to the top of your library. And this is your library right here. Open a virtual machine, open an existing virtual machine, which will then be added to the top of your library. Upgrade to VMware Workstation Pro, and help. We're just going to create a new VM. Let's just get into it. So create a new virtual machine. Welcome to your virtual machine wizard. If you have a disk drive, I don't have any drives. So if you have a CD or something and put it in, maybe it'll recognize it. Installing from a ISO, or install the operating system later, create a virtual machine with a blank hard drive. You could always do that and use an ISO to boot later. We're going to browse and actually install Ubuntu 22 desktop. Next, personalize Linux, Ubuntu 64-bit. Disk size will do, I got like 200 gigs free, so we've got a couple of options. We can store our virtual disk as a single file, which is actually what I'm going to be doing here, or we can split the virtual disk into multiple files. Makes it easier to move virtual machines to another computer, but may reduce performance for very large disks. So we're going to just click next under single file, customize hardware. On this next screen, it just gives you a value. And this kind of looks familiar, doesn't it? We can go in and modify how much memory we want to give a machine. I'm going to go ahead and just give it 2 gigs. We'll go into CPU. We'll just give it 1 CPU. All the rest of this we can leave alone. You can go in and make changes as you like. Power on virtual machine after creation. And we're just going to hit finish. Kind of glad this happened because I thought it might happen. If you do not have virtualization enabled, you might get an error message at this point where it tells you that you need to go in and enable it. Yeah, so we'll do that and we'll be right back. Oh, and before I go, a quick and dirty way to check this before you go down this rabbit hole is bring up your task manager under CPU. You can see right here I've got virtualization disabled. So yeah, I could have saved myself a little bit of trouble, but I'm kind of glad I didn't because now that gives you an idea of what to look for when you get into my scenario. Anyway, back to it. And we're back. Another quick tip before you reboot your PC and start diving into this all willy-nilly, you might want to do a Google search and look exactly what the settings are called for your specific motherboard. For example, I've got a B550i. Virtualization in the BIOS is actually called SVM mode. So that took a little bit of research to find out before I actually was able to get this turned on. But as you can see now, we have virtualization enabled right here. So now we can go forward with turning on our virtual machine. Go into our Ubuntu VM and just double click. And here we are, first boot up for Ubuntu in our layer 2 hypervisor provided by VMware for free. So I'm not going to go into the nuances of running a virtual machine because I've got a whole other video on creating our first VM using ESXi. You can go through all of those same type of steps and setups and things here as well, running the virtual machine that you want to run. VMware also makes a very similar product, but specifically for Mac. Enables you to run Linux and Windows on a Mac machine. There are other apps that kind of essentially do the same thing, like Parallels is a super popular one. This is VMware's version of it. So Fusion Player or Fusion Pro, depending again if you need the licensed features for it or not. It allows you to run Windows, Linux, containers, Kubernetes, and more in virtual machines without rebooting. Pretty cool. You can always set up a dual boot if you create multiple partitions on your primary hard drive. But again, that is dedicating your time and resources to, yes, I am committing to partitioning out my drive and reducing my storage footprint for, my primary operating system so that I can sacrifice and have a little bit of extra storage for this other operating system that I may or may not fully utilize. So it gives you more options again to play around and do what you want to do and not commit fully to something new that may not work specifically for you. I'm rambling. There was something cool here. Bitnami by VMware looks to be images or starting framework for dedicated app catalog here. I just found something new that I get to play with too. So once I learn more about these applications, how they would run on a Docker or Kubernetes environment, or even on a dedicated virtual machine, I'll go ahead and make some cool videos about that as well. Let you know what I found out. If you found this video at all helpful, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the channel. Make sure you subscribe for more videos like this. And of course, thanks for watching.